Welcome, 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 everyone. How is everyone doing out there? I think we can all agree that shit is getting seriously whacked here in Clown World. Like an interactive holographic mental ward run by psychopaths and lunatics. There seems to be no high in hijacked consciousness. But hey, what a ride. How did we get here? How did we let things get to this point? This is what I'm starting to wonder. And where are we heading? As I've ever stated, how can we heal from a past when we don't know what it is? How can we move and feel and heal into the future when we do not know who we are in the present? And the present is a gift, is it not? Know thyself, self, elves, elven, the elven tribes of old, and the psychotic offspring, hell bent on a new world order of the ages. Well, unlucky punks. As Stephen J.D. Beatty informs us, Hercules is smashing the Draco constellation right now in the stars. So game's up, motherfuckers. People, please do hold the line. So again, to move forward, we really need to reveal the past. Who is running this clown show? Aptly named, as the clown is the very symbol of these Nephilim RB1 gene bloodlines, the spliced and diced hybrid psychopathy of the Shepherd Kings of the Anu and the rest. So, following on from our interview with Paul Stubbs, the Nephilim as clowns, we have with us on the hot seat, ready today, the mind-bending Neil Bentley, to not only further elucidate this conundrum in his own indomitable way, but to fill in the gaps that no one else can, to boldly take us where no joiner from Preston has ever taken anyone before. Prepare to have this tradesman grab the expanding foam of gnosis and fill your cerebrum to the full. Now, Neil, thank you so much for joining us today, and let's build this block to enlightenment. And you are most welcome back, of course, as ever.
Another one. Follow that.
I know everybody says that. They say, like, what do I do now? Like with them, like you're literally just giving everything away. But um, so obviously we've been chatting offline, off camera, and obviously I did the interview with Paul Stubbs, and again, it was an amazing conversation with him, and not to diminish his work in any way. And if you haven't seen that interview, perhaps pause this and go watch that because it's a great backdrop to what we're about to deep dive here. And as I'm starting to learn, it is all things at all times. So Neil's going to take this one step further for us, and one step is probably an extremely conservative estimation. Neil's study on this topic, amongst others. Hold tight for his presentation on Islanders Atlantis. That's on the way. And this research of Neil's has been 25 hard years in the making. And we're going to deep dive or dark dive our origins today and perhaps answer some unanswered questions. So Neil postulates that this culturally embedded image of the clown represents more than just the disembodied entities that has been presented and postulated by other researchers, and that the Nephilim are real and they do indeed walk amongst us as we are trying to find out. And in fact, no doubt we are hybrids of them along the way. So Neil, like, where do we start with this one? From the beginning, as I always say, probably. The floor is yours.
I suppose, like most of these, you start with the apology. Let's get rid of it. So, probably for about the last 20 years, I might have seen 15 or 20 videos explaining what clowns are. Every single one of these videos have all said that clowns are disembodied spirits of the Nephilim that live on the other side of the veil. And if you have some DMT or some magic mushrooms, you can go and interact with them and see them, come back and draw pretty pictures of them. And every theory that's been out so far have all said exactly the same thing. So since my work kind of took me over to Ireland and I'm doing the Bible and Christianity, etc., that has led me to come up with an alternative theory as to what clowns are, where they came from, and what significance they have in our culture. So let's start off with a clown. So
Yeah.
You've got that all right. Right. So as I say, we've had in the last 15, 20 years, we've had quite a few videos on Nephilim being clowns. So let's have a look at what a clown is. What is significant about a clown? So obviously we have red hair, white skin, bright coloured clothes, bright red makeup, and they're a joker. They're a clown. They mess around and play tricks all the time. So let's start off at the beginning with the white skin. Now, we know the R1b gene produces white skin, red hair, blue or green eyes, and first appears in Ireland. No one knows where it came from, but that's what brings white skin, the R1b gene, and Ireland. So while we're in Ireland, we also know that Christianity and the Bible come from Ireland, which means that the Nephilim, the fallen angels, etc., are all Irish stories.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at the traditional Irish person. White skin, red hair, blue or green eyes. And when I say white skin, this is really white skin, milky white skin that doesn't tan.
Yeah.
So this is the basics of what the Irish actually look like. There we go. So we'll take it to that one. Right. So we've got the white skin, the red hair, red makeup, blue or green eyes. We also have brightly coloured dress. The Irish are always wearing brightly coloured dress wear. This is just ancient traditional Irish clothes.
Yeah.
Right. So we move on to the red makeup. Now, in my studies, where you have over 800 accounts of what the Great Flood is, you also have hundreds of accounts of these tall, white skin, red haired, blue or green eyes, semi-giants appearing with advanced knowledge. They taught them how to do everything, and then they buggered off and said, we'll be back again sometime. Well, one of the words that I kept hearing was red ochre. Now, I thought at the time that red ochre was a plant, but it turns out that red ochre is a clay. It's a red clay. And what they used to do is mix this red ochre with butter or fat and use it as a sunscreen. So where we have, this is the Dogon tribe, for example.
Yeah.
Blonde hair, bright coloured clothes, white faces. So the Dogons, for example, said their gods turned up. They had white skin, red hair, blue eyes, bright coloured clothes, red ochre as the sunscreen, red ochre as the makeup. And these were their gods that came, gave them all this advanced knowledge, and then buggered off again. A good example for that would be the South American when the Spanish conquistadors landed, because they were the white-skinned Europeans who landed on their shores. The native South Americans thought that they were these builder gods that had returned, so they all went running out to carrying the gold, and they just gave them gold. The Spanish didn't know what was going on until they found out that they thought that there was these white-skinned European gods that had returned.
Yeah.
Again, this is the Dogon tribe, and specifically interested is this blonde-haired wig that they're wearing.
Yeah.
So one of the most important demigods that there is comes from the Tuatha De Danann, the tribe of Dan, and that's Lu, the king of the Tuathas, Lu of the long arm, Lu, master of all the arts. Now, Lu was also called the trickster god. which, if we get round to doing a video on it, if I say the word trickster god, everyone thinks of Loki.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Yeah. So if you look at Norse mythology, I would also claim that a lot of these characters from Norse mythology also take their characteristics from these Irish demigods. So where you have Loki was the trickster god, Lu was called the trickster god. Where you had Odin, who sacrificed an eye for knowledge, Lu hung himself and sacrificed an eye for knowledge. You had Thor, who had the big hammer. The Dagda had a big hammer. Where you had Odin, who wandered the battlefields with his two crows. In Irish mythology, you have the Morrigan, who wandered the battlefields with her two crows. So we have Lu, the trickster god, the clown who likes playing tricks. Have you ever seen the Green Man carved anywhere?
Yeah, the kind of it's like a Celtic symbol, the green man, isn't it? Is it?
It's you see it absolutely everywhere. I've been seeing it for
Mm.
decades, and it's basically a man's
Yeah.
face surrounded by
With the
leaves, and it's
yeah, like a big
you
green
find it in
thing.
dozens of places in every single town. Well,
Yeah.
the answer to that one is the green man, this man's face with the leaves surrounding it, that is Lou.
Yeah.
Because what happened was in Ireland, you're allowed to be king for 40 years, but you have to be perfect. So if you pick up an injury like the Nuada did, he lost an arm in the first Battle of Moytura, he had to step down as being king because he had an imperfection. Lou
Mm.
stayed perfect and he managed the full 40 years. Now, the story goes that once Lou stepped down from being king, he'd done his 40 years and he wandered off into the forests and was never seen again. That's basically the end of the story of Lou. He wandered off into the forest and he was never seen again.
Sensible at this stage, I'd say, for most people.
Simple. There are one or
In
two.
climb.
There are one or two follow-up stories to Lou, because the Tuatha De Dananns were also known as the shapeshifters. So there are a lot of stories that if you follow, say, Thoth, when he first landed in Egypt, the land of Chem, if you read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the first thing he said is, firstly, I come from Atlantis, which is Ireland. And he
Yeah.
also said that he had reincarnated thousands of times and then carried all this knowledge through from all his previous lives. So that also plays into one of the characteristics of these demigods is that they can reincarnate and carry their knowledge through to a different
Mm.
life. Well, as Lou was also called Lou, Master of all the arts, he was supposed to be the most intelligent man who'd ever lived in Ireland, equal to Finn McCool, then this is where you can also get the trickster god from, and
Yeah.
why you can also relate Lou to Thoth and all these other demigods. So, a trickster god, a joker, a
Yeah.
joker, a joker clown. The one thing that leapt out off this is the clothing and the colours: white, green, and orange.
Yeah.
White,
Yeah.
green, and orange. So basically, what it is I believe that the clowns that are remembered by these ancient tribes throughout the world, what they remember is white skin, red haired, tall European gods with blue or green eyes, wearing red makeup and bright clothes, came to them several thousand years ago, brought them all this advanced knowledge, went away again, and strangely, they all say when they went away again, they all said they'd come back, and none of them ever did. So this is why all these tribes then remember their gods, try to dress like their gods, how they remember seeing them, and are basically waiting for them to come back, which is why the South Americans thought that the Spanish were the gods that had come back.
Yeah.
And basically, that's it. That's the alternative theory of what clowns are and why all these races around the world remember these characteristics. They put them up, but they put all these characteristics together, and we interpreted that as them looking like clowns.
Yeah.
Then,
Like in a
we
simple-minded
take,
kind of fashion.
then obviously we take the clown story, mix it in with the Nephilim, and then come up with a completely different story of what clowns are. Now, personally, I've
Yeah.
never taken DMT, and I've never taken magic. Well, I have taken mushrooms once, and it ended very badly. So, what goes on the other side of the veil? If you can see clowns, I don't know. The only way I can marry those two stories together is that if, when you die, you keep your image
Like a
in,
residual image.
yeah, like a residual image within your soul.
Oh, yeah.
So is that why they look like clowns? Do they exist beyond the veil? And if they do exist beyond the veil, is that why they look like clowns? Because of the red hair, white skin, etc., etc.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this is more, these people did exist, and these characteristics that we see in clowns are what the people remember of their gods coming to see them.
Yeah.
And we then interpreted that to be a clown.
Yeah.
But
And I
let's
think,
go on.
yeah, could you cover, like, Neil? Obviously, I'm sure people who are watching this video have seen, our videos with yourself that we've done already. And if you've not, again, do go watch those, because this will make way more sense. And obviously, there's more to come. There's a lot. I mean, how we're ever going to try and get Neil's 25 years and brain onto kind of videos is challenging itself. But we can kind of give the flavor. But these, I suppose they don't know where this RB1 gene came from, do they? That gives the white skin and the blue eyes, and it's probably like a question of mine as much as it will be of anyone else's. And what I try and do, now as I develop is like kind of think, what would people watching this want to ask? And so obviously we can see the differences in races. Black people obviously look very different to how I look, etc., and so on. And so, would you say, Neil, that this RB1, obviously, that Anunnaki, Anu means fall, Aki Earth, isn't it? They fell to Earth, and that they perhaps came in through operational stargates, these fallen angels, and that they are like a completely separate bloodline, aren't they? Because as you kind of say, don't they have 24 chromosomes? They have the extra X, don't they? Whereas we have 23. So
Yeah,
they
well,
aren't off this Earth, are they?
again, my theory comes at it from a slightly different angle. Firstly, the R1B gene, the white skin, blonde hair, etc., that turned up. No one knows where it comes from. The blue-eyed gene is a completely different gene. They know that turned up 10,000 years ago, and it came from one source, but they don't know where it is.
Right.
So that sort of kind of plays into the Adam and Eve story. Um, Yeah, the reason why I've kept this reasonably brief and sort of flipped over, oh, Christianity and the Bible came from Ireland. If I had to go into explain, I've already done the explanations of all those. But if I had to do
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
if I had to do that for every single one of them,
yeah,
each of these talks would end up lasting again 2 to 3 hours if you had to go into explaining every single time. But then that doesn't do any justice to the
yeah,
people that have sat and listened to the first ones we've done, going, oh God, I don't have to sit and listen to this for the next 20 minutes. I already know this.
yeah, yeah. And that's it. And that's why it's important to watch the other videos that we've done so that this absolutely makes more
Yeah, that
sense.
sort of
And obviously to
sums
watch
up
the other one.
me having to do a 2 hour explanation of what the R1B gene is. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
like you say, the Nephilim and the fallen angels, in my opinion, they didn't fall, they came back up from underground.
in back up. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because before Sirius got back, they all went to live underground, and 50% of the population were living underground, 50% stayed on the surface. And this is where you get a split in the, as in like two species of humans, if you will. So
Yeah.
when the Nephilim came back up again, when the fallen angels came back up again, being the white skin, blonde hair, blue eyed, etc., they were seen as gods and demigods, The Tuathas were also called the Shiny Ones, which also, if you go and look at The Shining, especially the second film that they did on The Shining, that tells you quite a lot. But going on to the chromosome thing, you would presume that the fallen angels are perfect pedigrees. Well, a perfect pedigree has 24 chromosomes, 12, 24, 48. We have 23 chromosomes. So in my work, I am saying that we are the Nephilim.
Yeah.
We are. You could describe it as demigods because we only have 23 pairs of chromosomes. Now, apparently, it's a 1,000,000,000,000 to 1 chance of that happening somehow naturally. So if you don't want to believe in a 1,000,000,000 to 1 chance of it happening naturally, then it was done deliberately. It was spliced. Now, one version, if you look at the Anunnaki, and they created hybrids of humans to go and dig their gold for them. Yeah, okay, that's a theory, but then no one looking into the Anunnaki story then takes into consideration that the Anunnaki, the Bible, the Nephilim, and all this came from Ireland. The sons of Anu, who were supposed to be the Anunnaki, are the Tuatha De Danann. Anu was their mother goddess figure, and Naki means serpent in Irish, which is where you get the word Anunnaki. And you can go as far as you want down it, because the Anunnaki from Sumeria. Well, Sumer is an Irish word for sun.
Yeah.
Sumer, Aryans, Sumerians.
Aryans.
So
sun people.
These sun worshipping Aryans.
Yeah.
Yeah, we find this all over once you start breaking it down. I particularly like the barbarians. We have Conan the Barbarian. You have Conan, who was an Irish sun god. Barbar means beard in Irish. Aryan. So Conan the Barbarian is Conan the sun god, the bearded Aryan. Conan the Barbarian. So beard means barbar. So this is where you sort of get these breakdown of words. So again, you can go back to Sumerian, where you have Sumer, which is an Irish word for sun, and Aryan, who are the Aryans from air, Sumerian, and they're also called the sons of Anu. So all the initial, it was like Flamenco said, they have the initial story, and then all they did was duplicate it and put it out across other cultures. And this was your Disney-fied version of history, where they took these stories, Lou the trickster god. Oh, we'll have a trickster god. Let's create a trickster god with the Vikings and call him Loki. So you find these characteristics over and over and over again repeated in deities found all over the world. But the initial story all seem to come from Ireland. So if you then trace back all these stories, especially if you're talking about biblical stories or fallen angels or anything like that, they are all created from Ireland in this period of 6,000 to 10,000 years ago. So again, when the Dogons, for example, are talking about these white-skinned, blonde-haired, blue-eyed gods that came and gave them all this advanced knowledge, are they talking about these spiritual Nephilim clowns that they've experienced on a DMT trip, or were they actually these people that turned up and gave them advanced knowledge? So they remember the characteristics of these people: blonde hair, red hair, white skin, red makeup, bright colored clothes. Are those characteristics then created into these characters that they put across as their being their god? That's what I walk into as to what clowns are, and whether
and I think
they're saying whether or not they exist on beyond the veil. I don't know, because I've never been beyond the veil.
I have, but I've never seen a clown. So there you go.
So yeah, actually, there's a lot of talk about clowns and interacting with these characters when you're on DMT trips. But
Yeah, yeah,
again, I've never actually talked to anyone that said, yes, I was on a DMT trip and I had interactions with clowns. So
yeah,
this is why I say I have no experience on DMT. I've never come across any clown. I've never talked to anyone that's come across a spiritual clown. So I'm not 100% sure of where the story of these spiritual clowns comes from. All I know is that for the last 20 years, I've been watching video after video saying all these clowns are spiritual, Nephilim, disembodied, and they live on the
yeah,
other
yeah.
side of the veil. But I've not come across any evidence that would be able to take my research any further than that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so
Well, and this is it could be both, couldn't it? It could be all things at all times. We know that these tribes dress up like you say, don't they, with these same colours, kind of recreating what it is they've seen wherever they've seen it. And
yeah,
obviously that kind of shamanic kind of element to it, etc. and so on. Well, like you say, Neil, they are possibly just emulating, because as we've again watched the other podcasts, we're postulating that obviously the knowledge after the floods came from west to east and not east to west, and that actually obviously as they went under, when they know when these cataclysms are coming, they kind of go underground, but like you say, that they hold their consciousness, or they somehow transport the consciousness or keep the memory. They don't have to go through what I call the forgetting, which is what kind of we do. we
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 do.
get our minds wiped, etc. Possibly, is it a soul trap, is it not, who knows? But yeah, I mean, it all kind of then fits, doesn't it? Exactly. But I mean, who knows? In the astral, you probably do get disembodied Nephilim, or perhaps maybe presenting themselves as clowns, but also that it actually happened. It's like what I was saying with Steve, and a lot of things that have been blowing my mind recently, and he agreed with me, was that yeah, it's kind of allegorical and anatomical and astrotheological and all these things, but that it also actually happened as well, because it's everything's everything at all times. I don't know whether you agree with that or not, but like Stephen said, we are the Elohim. We are the powerful ones. It's us, and which is why the hilarity of, like I say, constantly getting us to worship things outside of our own power, or these victim savior templates. That's why it's such a con, isn't it? Because we are them and they are us, really.
I think we're one step down from them, whereas
Yeah.
they could. Well, I say another name for the Tuatha De Danann is the Elven folk,
Mm.
which is why I always use elves, coming from the Bible.
Yeah.
El comes from the Bible. The only place I can find El in Ireland is the Elven folk, and the Tuatha De Danann, these godlike beings, are
Yeah.
call themselves the Elven folk. So I personally, because we only have 23 chromosomes, we are hybrids.
Yeah.
So we are the Nephilim. So we're not the gods, the fallen angel.
No.
We are their offspring, which makes us demigods. So I'd go
Yeah.
as far as us being demigods and us
Yeah.
being small
Good to
Nephilim.
know. Look at me. I'm like a little Nephilim. My blue eyes. Oh, okay, that's bleach, but still like her. And yeah, again, I suppose that yeah, that it all ties in, doesn't it? Which is why I love your stuff, and I love it all kind of merges. It doesn't like fit exactly, but it kind of does. The devil's a little bit in the detail, different angles on it, but generally, what we're finding is like it's that proverbial thread, and when we're pulling it, the cap doth
Oh,
fit.
pull a thread and duck. There's that
Yeah,
work out there. There's that much knowledge out there still to be found. It's quite
yeah,
terrifying that there are so few people actually looking into it, because there's that much out there and it's that fascinating. I mean, you said before about the Nephilim being disembodied spirits, or possibly playing at being, because again, I want to do another video on with you going into evil deities. So where you have Satan, Lucifer, Baal, Baphomet, all these characters. In my work, they're all created. Every single one of them is a fictional fabrication created just to scare you. The
yeah.
boogeyman.
Like Stephen says, agrees the same thing. That it's not real. Like you
That's
said,
not real.
Egypt's not real. Egypt's just a
So we
thought.
can
It's a school, yeah, school of thought.
we can break down where these evil deities come from and the characteristics behind them, and say it's just not true. It's fabricated. Obviously, I've fabricated the Baphomet in 1850. using the Cernunnos, the Irish horned hunter god. That's what he used to create the Baphomet with. And that was only created in 1850. So we have an explanation behind all the common named deities. But I would also believe in the jinn, demons, evil spirits that don't have a name, don't have a particular characteristic, but I would also contend that these evil spirits or the jinn or whatever word you want to understand that by, they could take on the form of a clown. To appear friendly, to appear like they're just jokers and the comedians. I would say if there are clowns in the spirit world, then they are probably jinn. Projecting as clowns.
Yeah, it's a funny one, the thing with the clown as well, like that we send clowns into children's parties, and that it's not, most children are kind of I think kind of scared of clowns. Like it's not yeah, it's not like and why do we do that? Like why? I mean, it's a bit sick puppy stuff when when we know the stuff. It's like we were saying about the Baphomet and Satan and satanic ritual abuse, and we know that Muppets and morons like myself hop on that. But also, I mean, something far darker and deeper in people's negative psyches. We know that satanic ritual abuse is a thing. We know Adrena and all that. We know that goes on. Like we were saying with Stephen. But like I said, Stephen, there's something far weirder and stranger, and this is what we're hopefully we're starting to reveal. We don't like to do. I never stay static, like I say at Dark Matters. I'm always humble enough to kind of shift and move, and as things kind of present and appear. But like we said, they kind of go underground, don't they? That justified in ancients of Moo, which is obviously Munster Island, as you say. So they're going underground. They're retaining this knowledge, and as we know, those with the knowledge have the power, and then popping back up on that world stage, which is all this, and the whole thing kind of goes again, doesn't it? But the theatre, the stage,
again,
acts are in.
Well, you said the world's a stage. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many things that you can disprove, but just for a very simple example, I mean, I use the 666, but how many times have you seen one of these stars of Hollywood go like that? So everyone will go, oh, it's the all-seeing eye, it's the eye of providence, it's the eye of Horus, etc., etc. What is the eye of Horus? What is the eye of providence? What is the all-seeing eye? And then because they have this related to some evil practice or some other equal word, again, this is what I was saying about programming words. And then you say the word and a picture is created in your head. So if you see a star going like that, you see evil, you see the eye of providence, the all-seeing eye, and he has something to do with Satanism and child sacrifice, etc., etc. Unless we just simply take the illusion off it and go, that the eye of providence is just another name for Sirius. The eye of Horus, the all-seeing eye. They're just Sirius. It's astrotheological. So there's nothing there. This is why I keep going back to saying they've forgotten. Or 90% of the minions at the bottom who are just signing the souls away are just doing it for money and attention and fame. And when they're stood there going like that and like that, they haven't got a clue what they're doing. I mean, as I say, the 666, it's a mistranslation in the King James Version Bible. It should be 616, and 616 just stands for Emperor Nero. Boom. 666 doesn't exist anymore. The Eye of Providence doesn't exist anymore. That, the bull's horn, is probably done by the Danites. The bull's horns. That's predominantly done by the Danites because they were worshipping Baal, this fake god, when they were in Egypt. When they came back to Ireland, they got found out that they'd been worshipping fake gods and got kicked out. But Baal comes from Bel. Bel comes from Belanus. Belanus is the Irish fire god, which is why on Beltane, the 1st of May, they have bonfires for the fire god. So
Yeah.
that's where Baal comes from. Baal comes from Beltane, which is just the first domain, which is bonfires, which is why they have
Yeah.
bonfires, because it's the fire god. It's nothing to
Yeah.
do with child sacrifice or
And I suppose they, because they invert, subvert, pervert, as we say, they've taken, and apparently the Roman came and slaughtered all the Druids. And then they kind of they've just imprinted and inverted so that it becomes all those other things. And I think it's also to keep us away, that's why, the dark matters, right? To keep us away from this occult hidden knowledge by demonizing it literally, and it's Satan, it's demons, it's all these things, so that we stay away from it when actually to kind of do the shadow work, or alchemize, the self, like know thyself. You've got to kind of deprogram and do all that kind of inner work, man. But also, that's why the dark does matter. There's a balance there. You've got to kind of see it, and it keeps you away, I think, by, like you say, we call it kind of that Disney-fied kind of take on it, not like, again, diminishing that idiots go along with this satanic ritual abuse, and that does not, that it does go into higher echelons of power, etc., and so on. We know that. I'm not saying that doesn't happen at all. Of course, we know that it does, but that there's another side to it, and that's what they're really hiding. This because, like you say, Stephen will say, Hades or Hadrian's Wall. That it's reflected by the Milky Way, as above, so
yeah.
below, and that Hades is represent. The rose line on that spine of Albion is where they're coming up, from the underworld. Like you say, it's not so much that they fell, because I think the Hopi, is it the Hopi, or it might
Yeah,
have been
they say their gods
the
came up.
Dagon or
In
the
fact,
Dogon. They actually called them the ant people, because
yeah,
they said
came
that
back
they'd
up.
come up from underground rather than,
Yeah, the
But I
Indians
think they
also.
came in. I think they came in through some operational portal or Stargate. Like, when we say we don't know where it's from, well, maybe we kind of do, but science hasn't got that far. Or
Well, I've got a loose theory. I mean, like I was saying the other day, this Sirius is unbelievable. It's the most important star in the sky by a long, long
yeah,
way. Um, Now, if you also say another word for Sirius is wormwood, and wormwood is Nibiru, well, Nibiru is where the Anunnaki came from. So, did
yeah,
the Tuatha De Danann come from Sirius?
yeah,
But then, when people start talking about portals, as I was saying the other day, 88, you see the number 88 absolutely everywhere. The Golden Gate portal, the Lion's Gate portal. Eight,
people don't know what the Greek is.
well, a lot of people are taking 88 miles an hour. Well, they're just taking that straight from Back to the Future.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
88 miles an hour, and then we create time travel. Oh, really? Well, how's about this one then? 8-8 is 8th of the 8th, 8th of August. And on the 8th of August, there is an eclipse, there is a conjunction between Sirius, the Sun, and the Earth. And that's when they form a dead straight line. So the
yeah,
energy coming from Sirius through the Sun onto the Earth on the 8th of the 8th, that's when it is at its strongest. And the 8th of the 8th is described as that is when the veil is at its thinnest. But that happens because
yeah,
Sirius, the Sun, and Earth form a direct line. So this energy is coming straight through the Sun, straight to the Earth. It's not going through the Sun and then bending off to come to the Earth. So this is where you get 8-8 and the Golden Gate and the Lion's Gate and all the portal, etc. So when you can look around, especially going back to sort of the megalithic stuff, where we find remnants which could be described as being portals, is that when they are used on the 8th of the 8th, is there some way of creating some kind of teleportation instrument
yeah,
that on the
yeah,
8th of the 8th, when these three planets align, is that when you can jump from one to the other? If you've read the story of the Anunnaki with Enlil and Enki and all the rest of them, Marduk, the story actually starts when they're on Nibiru and the atmosphere is collapsing because they don't have enough gold to protect it from the radiation. So they came to Earth to mine the gold. Now, in the story, there is only a certain period of time where they can jump across from Nibiru to Earth. So,
Yeah.
like I said, back to where I was saying about the Sun and Sirius forming this Vesica Pisces kind of orbits. In the story of the the Anunnaki and Nibiru, is it only when Sirius and the Earth get close back together and they're close enough to be able to jump across in
Yeah.
spaceships or whatever?
Yeah.
And then once you go past a certain point, and again, this is repeated in the story of the Anunnaki, that once it goes past a certain date, Nibiru and the Earth are too far apart, and then they are trapped there for the next 20,000 years because they've gone too far apart. So they know they're on this 20,000 year trip till Sirius comes back
Yeah.
close enough again. So the whole story of the Anunnaki and Nibiru and Wormwood, that all fits into the story of this theory I've got with Sirius. But
Yeah.
it's this jumping across from Sirius. Again, I'll keep going back to it. The Three Body Problem, the series that's just been on TV. There's so many things in that which also could marry in with this theory. Again, June. Have you seen any of the June series?
Yeah. I've not seen there's a series out. I've seen the film, but I've not seen the
The
new series
latest
out.
one on the latest one they've just done on Netflix. They were on, sorry, the
Yeah,
film.
no.
There was two films. They're up to they've just finished the second film.
Yeah.
I think there's a third.
Yeah.
There should be a third one to come yet. Well, there should be about six, but in this series, I think there's a
Yeah.
third one to come yet. Again, truth bombs in films. You know
Yeah.
what we were saying about dying and then remembering your previous lives over and over and over again. Well, that's what they were doing in June with the all those priestesses. I can't remember the names. And Paul Atreides and Leto, basically they died. And before they were born again, they remembered all their previous lives and they could draw on the experience of all their previous lives. And it was actually quite funny because when in the film June, when Paul Atreides gets blinded and then has to step down from being king and walks off into the desert, that again ties straight back to the Tuatha De Danann, which was, like I was saying, you can only be king
Yeah.
until you get an imperfection or until 40 years has come up, and then you have to step down and leave.
Yeah.
Well, Lou managed the 40 years without an imperfection, but Paul Atreides got an imperfection because he got blinded. He had to step down from being the king and he wandered off into the desert. Lou wandered off into the forest. So you get there's a lot of these sort of connections and similarities in a lot of films, but like I say, you've got to actually watch it and study all this stuff. Westworld is a brilliant example.
Yeah.
If you
Westworld.
haven't studied any of this, Westworld on its own is a brilliant film or a brilliant series.
Hmm.
Go and study Gnosticism and then go and watch Westworld again. It'll be like you're not even watching the same series because you can pick out all these characters and the stories and way it jumps around between what's real and what's on the other side of the veil and all that right through the series. You're never 100% sure on which reality you're actually watching. So again,
Yeah.
there's with this kind of work, this basically gives you a good foundation then to go and look at other stories and give it a
Yeah.
completely different perspective on what you've been regurgitating for the last 20 years, which is, no offense, this is what 90% of researchers do. They get up to a certain point, they've learned all about the Anunnaki and Enki and Enlil, and they know exactly about Planet X and Nibiru, and then chuck the extra one in and say Nibiru's Sirius, and the Anunnaki are the sons of Anu from Ireland. And all of a sudden, you've got two choices. You either your head explodes and you completely reject it because you know everything, or it's a door that's just opened, and all of a sudden you can then expand your research in to then include Ireland, fallen angels and Nephilim. As soon as you hear those words, you've got to think about Ireland.
Yeah.
So
Well,
then that
I'm glad you sprayed your expanding foam of gnosis upon us here at Dark Matters, Neil. But yeah, sorry to interrupt. I was thinking as well, this symbol of the eye obviously is like a huge thing, like and again
yeah,
we're gonna try
providence. Yeah.
This is supposed to be a little short, isn't it? So we don't want to kind of go over all the other videos. We don't have time to do that. But that kind of, that Lou sacrificed, or the Ra and the Horus, was it? Ra and Horus sacrificed an eye for knowledge, like Lucifer did. That
Lou
idea
sacrificed
of
an
the
eye.
eye.
Yeah, Lou sacrificed an eye for knowledge, and that's what
Yeah.
wasn't
Because it
one.
is obviously, because we say, don't we, things like it is for those that have eyes to see, that the pineal gland, or the pineal gland, was crucified between two thieves, that the eyes are the thieves of true kind of gnosis, or the inner alchemy or whatever. But what do you think? Obviously, because didn't Ra lose the right eye, which is the right hand path, and Horus lose the left, which is the left hand path, or was it the other way around? And what do you think the symbology means for that?
I've not got
I'm
around to
genuinely asking,
working.
because I'm trying.
I've not got around to working out the difference between right eye and left eye. I've always just presumed that means right path or left path, the path of
Yeah,
good or the path of bad.
yeah,
But I mean, in their understanding is that if I do 10 bad things, if I do 10 good things, then they equate each other out, and I've not done anything bad at all.
yeah. Like they
So it
balance
doesn't
each
matter if
other
it's
off.
the good path or the bad path. If they do something bad, they have to do something good to balance it out. This is what I say about when they talk about keeping the balance. So
Yeah.
if oh, no, I'm trying to think of names and examples, but I won't because they're all bad. So Bill
So
Gates
was it
does.
was it Ra who lost his right and Horus lost his left? Is that, have I got that the white way, the right way around? I can't
I
remember.
couldn't tell you, to be honest with you. I didn't.
No.
I've not looked at the.
We'll
I've not
find out. We'll
seen much
find
of
out.
the.
It'll be interesting.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I
And it's
saw.
interesting that they were called the shapeshifters as well, isn't it? Because obviously, there's this idea of the lizard kind of, a lizard breath, and that they shapeshift, etc. But some people will say that's allegorical because of the lead to gold, that they're operating from lower base frequencies, which is why they want to keep us in lower base frequencies. But actually, like Stephen said, they can't get out of here, he believes. They have to leave through the belt of Orion, and they can't get out, which is interesting about that portal and the Vesica Pisces, because I've always seen the Vesica Pisces in sacred geometry, etc., as a potential portal. And I always used to joke saying, portal of death, that's the only way out of here. Portal of death, who's coming with me? So it's like
Well, I've heard.
it all kind of, yeah, again, just kind of fits in, doesn't it?
Well, there is a certain
But it
amount
could
of
be both.
evidence or a theory going that where I say the Vesica Pisces is the shape of the orbits between the Sun and Sirius, that
Mm,
what actually powers that? There's a theory that says there's a black hole right in the middle between
yeah.
where they overlap, and you get that shape.
Um,
There's a black hole
yeah,
right in
yeah.
the center of that. So as the Sun and Sirius come back, they sort of flip round this black hole, and it sort of throws them both
Yeah.
back out again.
That would make sense. Not that I'm a big expert on how that works, but that kind of somehow makes sense. Like it's such a huge, and it's just, well, black holes are just huge energy. Like apparently in the law of one, like this is, we are in these octaves of existence, and it's kind of frequency like a musical note, so that the seven becomes the seven and the one are the same of the next octave, and
Yeah.
that's why the seventh and the first are the closest to each other, because it's the creator creating creation. But obviously, the Gnostic thought is that Adenic creation of this octave was hijacked, or Yahweh was given permission to come and basically fiddle and genetically alter the bipedals of Earth, but that the Orion group and create the Draco, the Anunnaki, then they thought, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and they sneaked in here somehow, and hence they fell, but then came underground. I mean, who knows? But it's certainly, yeah. I've lost my train of thought now. That's how deep I was going. What am I even actually talking about anymore? But yeah, it does all seem to kind of come back full circle, really. That they yeah, I don't know whether they can. I mean, who knows whether they can get out or not? But Stephen says they can't now
Personally, I
because they're
would,
cut off from source.
for them to live on another planet, I would have to believe there's some portal that
Mm,
allows them to get there instantaneously.
yeah,
I don't think that you can get into space.
yeah. No, I think that. Now,
Well,
listen to this. It was an interesting thing with Stephen. I was saying when I was a bit tuned in, I did a live the other night with David from SPLS Pro, and me and him are like, if you want to go and watch that on his channel, Indie Glow, it's called Indie Glow, we're just talking about bananas, about all kinds of stuff, but this kind of stuff got brought up as well. But yeah, I think whether we can get out or not, there's yeah, who knows really.
Well, again, if going back to Velikovsky's work, first it was a case of understanding that you're told that space is a vacuum, but that's all you're told. But then if you go and understand what a
Yeah,
vacuum is in 10 to the minus 8 or in 10 to the minus 16 to, or you'd realize that nothing can exist in the 10 to the minus 16 to a vacuum. Absolutely nothing. Not a gas giant, not a planet, nothing. It'd just be ripped apart immediately. So space cannot be
yeah,
a vacuum. So then you go back to Velikovsky's work with the Purple Dawn theory, that space isn't anything, but it's full of electrics. It's
yeah,
electromagnetic. So if you
yeah,
went into space, you just get fried immediately, unless your
yeah,
spaceship just happened to have 10-foot thick walls made of lead.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but
Well, there's
again,
yeah. And
you
I'm
say,
just talking bananas now, actually. And I'm gonna keep losing my train of thought, so I do apologize. If you're viewing this, you're probably thinking, "What is Carly going on about?" Because it's because I'm thinking really deeply on the spot, right? So my point was with the black hole is that obviously the universe is like a giant heartbeat, like one song, boom, boom, and it goes like that. But when that octave assimilates all the information that it's learned, it comes back like a heartbeat. Well, actually, it goes into a black hole and then creates another universe out the side, and that goes on in infinity, so that black holes potentially are portals between two different universes, basically. So as our, like you say, Sun and Sirius kind of comes and they're utilizing perhaps the energy of that portal to kind of flip back off, it's creating new universes as they kind of know themselves, was my point that I never got to.
it would, like you say, because the universe basically works like a metronome, it would be
Mm,
giving pulses.
yeah,
Um,
and there's that frequency.
yeah, so you're going back into frequencies and stuff. Um, that's not something that I've ever really
Um,
gone too far into.
yeah.
Again, you were talking about octave being 7 notes. Is that where the 13 comes from?
Mm.
Because you've got 7, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it starts back to A again, which is 8, but it's really 7.
Yeah, yeah,
But
that's it.
all the notes in between, all the sharps and the flats in between, make 13.
Yeah,
There were 13 notes in a chromatic scale. So
yeah,
this is the
yeah,
relevant. If you're talking about frequencies, you also have to take into consideration the number 13 as well as the number 7, because, like I say, if you go in A sharp,
yeah,
A flat, F sharp, B flat, whatever,
yeah,
and you include all those, there's 13 notes. There's actually 13, not 7.
yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah, and then that make 13 they say is like an unlucky number. They've demonized that number when we know that again that's just another inversion and load of nonsense. And then the other point I was like I rambled on about and totally forgot. Sorry, it's my age. But basically, like it was dead funny. Like I was saying, this is why I was talking about David from SPLS, but I do apologize. I'm all over the place today. But anyway, let's just say perhaps I had a little smoke or something. I mean, obviously a cigarette, and I was tuned in, and I woke up and I'd written in my diary, the Romans came and slaughtered the Druids, because they were holding up the dome, right? And I thought that's strange spell. Why have you wrote that? Anyway, I didn't think that much about it more, other than just an idea. And when we were interviewing Stephen, or chatting with Stephen, he said the Romans came and slaughtered the Druids because they were holding up the force field. And the force field allegedly was what, because we are demigods or gods or hybrids of gods, you decide, that we had this magic, it was more like Middle Earth then, weren't it? The veil was thinner. We could move between portals. We had
You,
all this occult knowledge wasn't occult, it wasn't hidden. We knew it. And then actually that they came and slaughtered us because the force field protected us from the negative, perverse elements of the archons or the wanderers, which is the planets or whatever. But I'm a bit like you. I don't think you can get out of space. I think we create what's up there, as demigods or gods or whatever, but God is within. And I was like, as soon as he said it, Neil, I just went, oh, well, that's what I wrote down in my
I wrote
diary.
that the other
And
day.
what are the odds? What are the odds of that now?
I do
We
tend to
would have been
find,
holding this force field from as a protection from them.
again, you've also got to take into consideration. I mean, the oldest knowledge that there is, saying that it was organized back in ancient Ireland 6 to 10,000 years ago when they created organized religion and the mystery schools to hide and protect the knowledge. Well, as far as organized religion is concerned, the closest modern one today would be Gnosticism. If you
Yeah.
look at mystery skills, the closest one today will be the Hermetic teachings. Just to put a
Hmm.
word on it that people know about. But if you look back at the
Yeah.
ancient Hermetic teachings and you look back at Gnosticism, the foundations of those is that none of this is real. That,
Yeah.
that it is all a fabricated reality. And then if you look at the double slit experiment, where every reality is played out until you look at it, and then what you
Mm.
experience is the reality that you expect to see. So in the
Yeah.
double
Yeah.
slit experiment, you expect to see two lines, and you see two lines. When you don't look at it, every option is then played out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Possibility, probability, and it's
yeah, so
always there. And
well
we're
again,
shifting constantly between these dimensional timelines. Apparently, is another
well
theory. So,
it's really weird because especially in this kind of work, it throws up a lot of questions, a lot of really weird questions that
mm,
you literally never have thought of before. So I can think back 12 months ago, I couldn't work out what that red hand is in the Irish flag. Why that red hand and the red hand of Ulster? Because the red hand of Ulster comes up a lot in the stories of the Tuatha De Danann. And for
yeah.
weeks, you're
Oh,
asking the question.
in contract law, Neil, sorry to interrupt. In contract law, they call anything that isn't obvious in a contract the red hand rule. If it isn't obvious, then and it's actually very inherent and essential to that meeting of the minds, then the contract can be void from the outset, and they call it the red hand rule.
All right, no, that's
Interesting.
some more knowledge I'll look up. Um,
Yeah.
but again, it's sort of the number of times I've been thinking about some really, really weird questions, and then a couple of days later, the answer suddenly pops up from nowhere. And
It's funny like that, isn't it? Like I said that about you. Well, not you, because I didn't know you then, but I'd gone on Joey's show, hadn't I? And I'd said, I need to find a man. Sorry, ladies, but it's usually men with this stuff. But I need to find a man who knows about this land, knows about Scotland as the Holy Land, Ireland. I kind of had a brief, and then literally I went on Joey's show, and then you messaged me, and I went, "What are the odds of that?" I just said it. Same when I said I need to find somebody about who knows about constitutional law. Within a week, I'd met Terry, and he was there teaching me all about constitutional law. And I'm like, hang on a minute, I'm either a really great manifester, or the powers that be are listening in on my phone and sending me these. I don't know. God, gosh knows, but
it definitely
it's
makes
it's
you
super fascinating whatever's happening.
it definitely makes you question the fundamentals of reality. I mean, I know
Yeah.
for a fact, and I'll
Oh
always
God.
remember this. About 5 years ago, I was working on a building site, um, and I was trying to remember a record that I'd heard years ago. In fact, life of me, I could not remember what this record is. And then all of a sudden, you forget about it. An hour later, it pops into your head. Oh, yeah, that's what it was. Now, at that point, I remember specifically remembering thinking, don't say it. Don't speak it out loud so your phone would hear it.
Yeah,
Just think
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Only think it. Don't say it. Don't sing it. Don't do nothing. But I come up with the answer. I knew what it was, and it was all in my head. I hadn't said it. I hadn't sung it. Nothing. 2 days later, I opened YouTube. The very first recommendation on YouTube was this record that I've been trying to think of. And it's like, I
Yeah.
know I did not say that. So my phone could not have heard that to put it up,
Yeah.
but I only thought it and it came up anyway.
Yeah,
And it's that's
these devices are way more than we think that they are.
it's not
And I,
just
I actually read a brief article on it, but I'm a bit of a lazy reader sometimes, so I kind of like I skimmed through it. But basically, yeah, the technology in there is to pick up on on the frequencies of our brain, and they can read our minds with those things. Which let's face it, loads of us have reported that now. You can just think about maybe going to Egypt for a week on holiday, and all of a sudden you're just getting, like I say, you've not spoke it. There was something similar I did the other week, but I won't bore people with trying to remember it because I don't know what's up with my brain today. I do apologise. But yeah, Hermes Trismegistus and those kind of areas of study, like you said, they're a great backdrop, aren't they, to this kind of information, really. Definitely something to deep dive, really. People want to. And
Again, I
Dewey
think
Larson, is the alternative physicist I was very badly quoting earlier about the black holes and how the universe works like that as a heartbeat. So if people are interested in deep diving a little bit more about Dewey Larson, kind of very complex stuff, but super, super interesting.
again, the further you go down these rabbit holes, the harder the researching becomes because there's less and less material there. You've got to make
Yeah.
more and more notes and then go and find a specific word and then actually go onto the internet and open half a dozen pages. You're not going to find most of the answers just on a YouTube video. You've actually then got to start doing some genuine research, which is why I
Yeah.
keep saying that the vast majority of researchers do their researching just through watching YouTube videos or TikTok videos or whatever, and not going onto a computer with this long list of words and explanations and then finding out all the answers for themselves. Which is, to me,
Yeah.
that's what everyone should be doing. I know when they talk about going on a journey with the Masons, your educational journey, they believe that everybody's journey is a unique journey. So they don't teach you what to think. They don't sit there and you're like, you've come to school and we're now going to teach you what to think. They basically go, there's the keys for the library. Off you go. Go and read it all yourself.
Yeah.
So you have to educate yourself. And it's up to you how much you learn and how much you know and which path that you take. And the conclusions that
Yeah.
that you come up with, you are then tested on your own conclusions. So you're not just regurgitating something that you've been taught. You actually have to go and look and study and understand what you are reading. And then you are then tested and then you can move up a level. Well, is that not exactly like life? I've been saying I personally think that you live the same life over and over and over again, like you play the same platform game, same platform level over and over and over again. And then once you've perfected that level, then you go up to the next level.
That's a scary thought, Neil. That's scary to death. My friend Caroline Knight, who did the interview with Tony Sayers, and again, I love what Tony says. I don't agree with all of it. Sometimes I get giddy in the in the interviews. Go, yeah, yeah. Then I'll come up and go, you say yeah, yeah to that. You don't really agree with that. And I think about it. I go, I don't agree with that. So yeah, that's another thing. That's just my brain. But yeah, yeah, like I say, you've got to do your own due diligence. You've got to do your own homework. And like I say, about this idea that narratives and that moves consciousness. Like I always say, the devil's in the detail. It's the story that moves the consciousness, and they know that. And we've told stories, generationally for thousands of years, but it's kind of been lost in itself. But that's why you get characters in alphabets. That's why we have characters in plays, characters on the stage. It's all words and language. And like, going back to religion, to thwart, to hold back, to bind. It don't matter if you want to be a Catholic, a Muslim, a Buddhist. I know Buddhism's a philosophy, but before anyone goes, it's not a religion, that can't, it's a philosophy. Yeah, I know it is. But whatever it is you want to believe, and there's a lie in belief, if we say it's the language that reveals it. So if you want to go and sign up and worship at an altar of wood and stone or whatever it is outside of yourself, then religion, the meaning of the word tells you what it is first. Decode the word, it tells you what it is. And it's the same with language. I mean, what did Rome mean again? Just remind me. I remember you telling me
Well, it's two
row and
Irish,
oh,
row and home. It's a compound of two Irish words, row and home, which means heaven and earth.
that was it. Yeah,
You've
heaven and
also
earth.
got the River Tiber. The River Tiber is an Irish word. That means spring or river.
Spring fruit, yeah.
And then you've
It's
got the
the
set.
words. I stand by that 100%. Forget what they're selling you. Forget what they're telling you. I just decode the words, the symbols, and dig into, like I say, dig into the history or the true history of the land, and you're getting pretty close, I think.
Well,
I do think.
the way I try to imagine it about life, reality, is like a pleasure beach. pleasure beach. You go into a pleasure beach. It opens at 9 o'clock in the morning when you're born, and it shuts at 5 o'clock at night. Is when you die. So 8 hours, and that's your lifespan sort of thing. So while you're in the pleasure beach, you can go on many different rides. You can go on the ride of work. You can go on the ride of researching. You can go on the ride of playing golf. You can go on whatever. There's all these different rides and experiences that you can have within the pleasure beach. But all these rides are controlled. All the stories behind all the rides are controlled. You know, if I go to Blackpool and go on the Grand National, I'm pretending to ride around on horses. But all these stories are all controlled, and the script that you are given for all these stories is controlled. That's what I say. The whole thing is like a pantomime. So if you then want to go on the ride of being a content producer, and if you want to go on, I'll stick to the same one. If you want to go and produce a load of documentaries about the Anunnaki and Sumeria and all the rest of it, you'll be promoted. Great, fantastic, no problem. You'll have 10 or 100,000 subscribers. You'll be able to make a living out of it, etc., etc. If you don't go into the amusement park, if you don't go into the pleasure beach and you just walk past and go and just recognize it for what it is, and then go off somewhere else and do your own researching and don't follow the script, if I then come to where the point where I am now and then say, whoa, 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 no, the Anunnaki are the sons of Anu, and they were the Tuatha De Danann, the Anunnaki all come from Ireland, etc. Well, that's not going along with their script. So I could then go, right, oh, well, I can make content. I can go and make videos. They will be hidden, well and truly hidden.
Check my algorithm for details.
Well, that's why I said. This is why I said to you a couple of months ago. If you're trying to make money or get a lot of subs, do not do this subject. If you're 100,000,
I do it for love.
Well, you're involved with the law. If you wanted to produce a content channel and you know all about the law, all you need to do is just go out into society and just go and start winding the police up and film it. Because of your knowledge, and you'd make them look absolute muppets. But the next thing you know, you'd have a channel with 100 or 200,000 subscribers because you're going along with their narrative. And their narrative at the moment in society is breaking down society. So if you can break the people's trust in the police or start poking holes in what the police are doing, you'll be promoted for that. And then you'll have all your hundreds of thousands of subscribers and making shitloads of money. This is why all these controlled opposition, they're all promoted. I mean, only yesterday it became a joke because the first thing I saw was a video of Russell Brand on a plane with P. Diddy. Is it P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, whatever his name is?
And Clue was always in the title with that one, people. I mean, come on, I was saying that 10 years ago, that all the black male rappers are gay, allegedly.
Well, we were saying it 10, 15, 20 years ago. So this whole thing now with Epstein, with Puff Diddy, so it's part of the character, it's part of the pantomime. That's all it is. They could have locked him up 20 years ago. But they didn't. The Epstein that died on the gurney in the prison wasn't the same Epstein that was out partying with the Clintons and Trumps and all the rest of it. If you take a picture of Epstein's ears from 20 or 30 years ago, if you then go and take a picture of Epstein's ears when he was led dead on the gurney, those two people are completely different people. So the whole thing is just a pantomime. It's just a rigged pantomime. And now we've got hundreds and hundreds of content producers have all suddenly got all this content, producing content about P, Puff, Diddy, Daddy.
And I can't do that because it bores me to tears, because I won't join in with the drama and the theatre. I mean, I'm not saying I don't occasionally or haven't occasionally historically, but generally I always try and push. Like I've always said, I just share my journey and where it's led me, and it's led me to people like you know, yourself and Stephen and all kinds of awesome people, David from, the law, different people in the law. But yeah, absolutely. Like you say, it's just an absolute theatre, and it's driven by language and moving and
All,
stories and moving consciousness in certain ways.
all you've got to do is basically spot the bandwagon and don't jump on it. It is. It's,
Oh yeah,
right now, it's a
spot the
bandwagon. So, like yesterday morning, I saw Russell Brand on a plane with P Puff Diddy Daddy. In the
yeah,
afternoon, another video came up where Russell Brand is on stage with Jordan Peterson.
yeah, yeah.
Tell me that they're not on the same side, and
No, well,
people will now just watch a couple of Jordan Peterson videos and think, "Wow, he's talking so much common sense there. I better get it. I'll jump on that bandwagon." A bit
yeah,
later, I saw another video with Jordan Peterson and Piers Morgan. So
yeah,
all
yeah,
these people, GB News, all these media companies and media people, if they are promoting the right story and the story that they want you to believe, if they are promoting the bandwagon, you will be promoted. And it doesn't matter if you've sold your soul or not sold your soul, or if you're completely innocent and you're just jumping on the bandwagon just to make
the
some money,
algorithms.
produce some content. It doesn't really matter if you're in with them or not in with them. It's the story that you're telling. And if you're pushing along the bandwagon and the Disneyfication story, then you will be promoted along those lines.
Yeah,
If you come out and start talking about Ireland and Christianity and Rome slope Christianity, etc., you will be well and truly hidden. I mean, when I first started in this, Michael Sarian's work is absolutely mind blowing. And yeah, you'll watch his
yeah,
videos and it might have had 5,000 views.
yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah,
I'll turn over and watch a video that someone's made of Satan being a big red ugly dude that has evil and people sacrifice to him. And that'll have 500,000 views
yeah,
because
yeah. Well,
that's
people like they like the fear porn, don't they? People love
love
being
it.
part of that theatre. Even like I always say to people in my talks, it's your name at the end of the credits on there as well, because we've all joined in. The game is to stop playing the game. Because
Don't jump on the bandwagon, spot the bandwagon and don't jump on it. It's as simple as that. The bandwagon is there to lead you astray and to take you down a path that takes you further away from what the actual truth is.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Like
like I say,
Stephen said, if you're not studying the history of this land and the law and the legal fiction, those two things and decoding the language really get away
again,
from
like we
you
were saying
straight away.
before, with Hermeticism and Gnosticism and astrology, the ancient history of Britain, unless you can get the foundation of your knowledge correct, suddenly jumping in halfway along the line where you've seen an interesting bandwagon and you just go and jump on that bandwagon and start either learning about it or promoting material about that.
Yeah,
How do you know that the foundation of your knowledge is correct, or someone that hasn't given it to you deliberately to be incorrect?
yeah, yeah.
Which
Exactly.
again, sort of going in full circle, that's why I then have a different opinion about clowns, because I have a different knowledge base about where I think Christianity and the Bible and the Nephilim come from and the R1B gene. One thing, not bad, but it is a bit of criticism. When you did that last interview about Nephilim being the clowns,
Yeah.
what was his name? Paul?
Paul, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Stop.
Yeah, nice lad. I watched one of his videos last night. He's just put another one out. When you asked him about the R1B gene and Christianity coming from Ireland, it was just
You didn't know
I
it
hadn't got
then.
a clue about any of that. So if he
Yeah.
doesn't know that white skin, red hair, bright clothes, etc., all come from Ireland, and Christianity and the fallen angels and the Nephilim all come from Ireland, he can't base the foundation of his theory from anything that has come from Ireland because he hasn't learnt it.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah,
So
it's super
again,
interesting to
taking it onto the next level, taking what you think that you know onto the next level, and suddenly going, you know something, I know everything, but I don't know anything. I
exactly.
now have
That's
to take
that.
every, I now have to take everything that I've learned for the last 10 or 20 years, throw it in the bin, and start all over again.
Yeah, well, it's a different. It's like I say, it's all to do with the kind of the starting point and where it's at, isn't it? And then I tend to kind of just like come full circle in a way. It's yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely fascinating stuff, as we know. So, but anyway, we'll probably wrap this one up there because we said we just thought we'd do it as a. I don't think we can have a short on dark matters. I don't think
I
that
think it was
exists.
turned
But
into a
that's as
memoir.
short as me and Neil can get.
That's what
So I
it
hope you
gets.
enjoyed it.
But it's just
But
that was
yeah,
just
thanks
an
again.
alternative theory of when you see clowns or if you see any clown videos or whatever. Right now, if someone said clown, 99% of researchers will all say, oh, it's disembodied Nephilim spirits that live on the other side of the veil.
Yeah,
If they've now watched this or start following this work, you can now say, or is it? Or were they actually
is
real
it?
characters that existed in history?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just another option, another string to the bow. That's all. You can decide. It's up to you.
yeah.
Does this
Well,
jigsaw
and that's what
piece?
we always say in it at
Does
Dark
the
Matters.
jigsaw?
You know, we postulate, you
Oh,
decide. I always say that you
yeah.
decide.
Well, it's in your own
But
mind.
definitely,
I've got this as like 100,000 piece jigsaw puzzle, but I
yeah,
don't. I have the ability to put a piece in there, see if it fits
yeah,
amongst everything else. But if in 5 years' time something else comes along that fits even better, I can take that piece out and replace it, and I'm perfectly
yeah,
capable of doing that. The problem is that a lot of people aren't capable or won't do that because they know that
yeah, yeah,
that's the foundation of a lot of their beliefs. And if you then take that
yeah.
piece out, then it all comes crashing down and you've got to start again.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And this is it, you know. And on a finishing note, you remember the key word here is that they are perceived as gods, even if they have got that cheeky extra chromosome. But if we're demigods or we're gods, which I do believe that we are, then you know, the power is ours. They're cut off from source and they can't get out and we can, so they don't want us to leave. But apparently, you know, it's all written in the stars. But we're just trying to piece, like Neil says, together an extremely uh, gigantic, almost unfathomable puzzle into, you know, down into a peaceable, fathomable scale. So, and hopefully you can just join us for the ride, even if Carly has lost a train of thought at least 3 times on that. You know, so what am I even talking about anymore? I don't even know. But thanks, Neil. Thanks, Neil, so much again for coming on, and we shall eagerly anticipate the next presentation. That one will be coming soon. So Neil's been working on that, and yeah, we'll definitely hopefully see you next time in the strange land of Gnostic foam in the world of a joiner from Preston, filling our heads with the most wonderful, beautiful stuff. Definitely food for amazing thought. And thanks again, Neil, and we shall see you next time.
Thank you, Carly. Cheers. Thanks for that.